I am actually very tired of white people dooming.
Yeah.
Because one, y'all need to get used to working from behind, you know?
Yeah.
I know y'all have now lost 2 big elections, but I grew up in Texas and my first vote was in North Carolina when I was trying to get Jesse Helms. And we lost that one.
Yeah.
You know, I've had a lot of, we don't all get to grow up every single time we vote. You know, we were putting in a different groundbreaking demographic that changes the world, you know? And also I do kind of think it's annoying that when gay people got to get married and when there's a lot more, so whatever you like to think, there's a lot more racial equity than there was 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, definitely.
That coincidentally around the same time, white people are either basically white people are dismantling society right when that's happening.
Yeah.
You know, I did see somebody theorize that a lot of what's happened is still just a trauma response to Obama being elected.
Interesting.
That was just so offensive to them.
Right.
That they'd rather just destroy they just want to flip the entire
You're right. Yeah.
chessboard off, you know, in response.
Right.
But to the point, your point is that I just find it demoralizing. I just find it very exhausting.
Yeah.
And I do think there's not a ton we can do right now as a regular citizen.
100%.
I could send money to.
Yeah. You can call your congressman. You can send money.
I could send a fax or I could go leave a voicemail or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm actually very disincentivized right now to give money to them.
For sure.
I thought it was very annoying after the election, 2 days after election, to get more text fundraising messages.
Yeah.
Because what you're saying when you say that we failed, just want to emphasize that you did.
Yeah.
One thing I think that everybody needs to examine, and I'm not sure the answer to this, but the entire mechanism failed.
Yeah.
So the Democrats raised way more money than Trump did. They had way more field operations. They had way more. I guarantee they had way more regular citizens phone banking and writing postcards.
Yeah.
And helping in Canvas and doing hey, do you need a ride to the polls? All of the activism things that you'd want a citizen to do, which is donate money and do all that. I guarantee that there were way more of people doing that for Kamala than for Trump.
Yeah.
And it was said in 2016 that there were way more people doing it for Hillary. So all of the thing, now when people were you got to do something, it's yeah, you got to write your thing, you got to donate. Well, it's we've done those for
that's
8 or 9 years now.
Well, and I think that from the liberal perspective, we saw Trump claim that the election was stolen for 4 years, fraudulently claim, tell a lie that is so egregious and in my mind a traitorous lie, something that is a treachery to.
I mean, he's proved himself treasonous.
Yeah. And so to me, it's if that isn't enough to sway that we have much deeper problems. It's a media problem. It's a systemic problem. Well, me writing letters and giving $25 to Act Blue is not gonna.
Here is why I say I don't know the answer to this is there also a possibility, which I think this might be true. Is there a possibility that Trump is a unicorn that defies all these systemic things and that we overreact to this unicorn that is able to just get support and votes independent of rational thought? And then in the next round, we have abandoned all those field things and the things that we actually do work. And you could argue they worked for Biden, right? Because my question is, if I was a Republican, if I was just a regular Republican, I would be very concerned as to what's going to happen the next cycle.
Yeah.
Because this is my theory. They don't have a superstar to take over for him. You would have heard about them by now.
Yeah.
Whoever it is. They don't have another charismatic leader that can take his place.
No. Well, he's going to try to take his own place.
Yes, but also I also file that away with white people dooming.
Yeah,
because everybody that wants to come say to me, when I say, well, there's only 4 more years of this, well, it might not be 4, it might be another 8 or 12.
Yeah,
I just want you to tell me
bad
when you do that. Okay, I'll just say whoever's watching. When you do that, please tell me that, and tell me the process by which a constitutional modification is made to where he can do another term. Like, tell me the process how an amendment is made, or
yeah, but don't you think he would just like make some executive action, some executive decree, and then there's just no system in place, like the Supreme Court, no one would challenge him.
Yeah,
like you'd have to have the army, you'd have to have like a general do a coup from the there's no one there to enforce anything.
I mean, we might be at a point at that point that we have a military coup.
Yeah, but I hope I'm wrong. My hope is that this is an overreaction, and that this is a huge stress test on our system, and that this will it feels dark now, but it will somehow lead to a stronger, more robust system.
I wouldn't bet on that. It could be a weaker, less robust system, but I just think that I guess my point is, like, it's not functional to think that way now anyway. Like, what is it?
For sure.
I guess there's a particular, I'm sorry to make this like racial, but there's a particular kind of white anxiety hand wringing that is about expressing like worries in a way that feels paralyzing, where it's like, okay, but like, 1, it's not a thing right now. 2, we can't worry about it. 3, it's demotivating. So, you know what I mean? Like, I find it just so do you think
it's white, or do you think it's liberal?
Specifically white. No.
I always see class as a bigger deal than race, to be quite frank.
That is a white thing to do.
Not that they don't interplay, not that they don't talk to each other, but I think the real problem is
this is what I'll say. First of all, and I'm being a little glib by saying that it's white, but I will say that people of color are a little more used to being on the losing side, so that we're not as shocked by all of this.
Yeah.
In a way, a lot of this feeling out of control and that things are happening that are unfair are almost like the surface level civics theater has been stripped away.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're seeing that, really, like, enforcement about these things has really, like, it does sort of come down to blood at some point, because the Supreme Court can say all they want about how Doge can't defund things or whatever, but if they keep defunding it, what's going to stop it at some point? You can break whatever laws you want, and then the police will come get you. You don't have to comply with the police.
Yeah.
And at some point they have to like put a bullet in you, it's like really weird, like how we're sort of just cooperating with all these laws.
Yeah. Yes.
And now they're just like, we're not going to cooperate.
Right.
But as far as like the thing about the class race thing is just that, I think there are some studies to like support this, but basically there are instances where even if you get people into a different class, when we talk about like intersectionality, like somebody that's black and middle class will still have a disproportionate number of disadvantages, even if they make more money than a white family. There are still like racial things baked into us, and I think that I guess the other thing I would say is that Trump getting elected, I think, shows that a lot of poor white people don't see class in that way. They don't see him as like a rich person that isn't on their side because he's not of their class. Like they don't.
Yeah,
care.
But I think they see him as a rich person who is on their side and who's going to help, who knows how to make them.
Well, I'm
rich.
saying they're not.
I think they see him as one of them who's made it.
I think that class dynamic doesn't, even if it was true, it doesn't seem to work. Like I feel like I think like since Marx has been, or was like, basically if you're poor in one country and there's poor people in another country, like you should unite with them because you're in the same class, you should both think about like overthrowing the people that oppress you. Right.
Yeah.
And it just like never works that way. It's always just like, I'm poor from this country, I still fucking hate you, like your soccer team beat ours.
Yeah. Yeah. There's someone wrote a thing about racism as a way to keep poor people fighting amongst each other, where it's like, instead of looking at the rich people who are oppressing you, look at the other races and blame them for stealing your jobs.
So
blame the other races.
You could put xenophobia there too, right? But I would argue that America is so built on racism that it might just be baked into the core of how this country was built, like literally built by Black people that were stolen from their homes, that it might just be like part of the fabric in a way. But I mean, it's also, I mean, they're clearly like intertwined. So I also think like separating one or the other is like not that useful either, because you have to talk about all of it at once.
Yeah.
I will bristle a bit when 2015, 2016 era Bernie supporters will say that class is more important than race, because Bernie himself was a person who often put class as a more important issue than race, and proved himself to be racially tone deaf in a lot of ways. That I was just like that, where, I mean, I had a Bernie sign in my yard, and then like just gradually over time, I just lost trust in his ability to speak to matters beyond like wealth inequality. Like he has his like wheelhouse, and I think Bernie was super important for moving the Overton window about like universal basic income and like small donor contributions to politics and stuff like that, and like this kind of grassroots stuff. And so I think he, in the grand scope of things, he will prove to have been very, very important to giving a voice to like left issues. But I never saw him as like a functional candidate. He did this like editorial meeting with the Daily News back in the day, and it was him and Hillary, and they both did, hey, sit down with our editorial board, we're going to talk about what would you do about unemployment, what would you do about foreign policy, what would you do. And I mean, I encourage anybody to just go back and read these two comparative in-depth interviews between Hillary, who is not the most charismatic politician, who had all this like baggage from Bill and also their questionable ethics, but just her policy wonk answers to what would we do about childcare, and just like pages and pages where it just seems like she could talk forever about what she wanted to do. And then some of Bernie's answers being like, well, I'd just hire somebody to help me with that. Like it was, her answers were like 4 times as long as his.
Yeah.
And okay, so let me just finish this little rant,
Sure.
because I've never said it in public before. And I'm sure that people will hate this on online commenters, but then you could say, okay, then it's just a question of, well, Bernie needs to, when he gets in, of course, you don't need the president to be expert in everything.
Yeah, he has to hire
people. He can hire good people,
you have to
which
delegate,
I would argue Biden, probably all of the excellent legislative things that Biden did, like the Inflation Recovery Act, probably came from super smart college, like just out of college interns that like wrote some insane, they stayed in the office writing a 500-page legislature, and then he got to say he did it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of being president.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, then Bernie has also shown through multiple campaigns that he hires shitty people.
Interesting.
Like Bree Joy, I forgot her name, Bria Newsom, or whatever. Like, what is it? Like Nina Turner, that are like fucking shitty, like not only like shitty operatives, but like bad at politics, and they lost, I had no confidence that he would hire good people.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's this week's episode of
Deep Noodle.
Anyway, that's just
the
my
Chris Grace
rant.
podcast.
I'd like to begin with a fact.
So deep. So deep.
Or in Chicago, New York, or Los Angeles.
You have to go deeper, I think.